Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Friday, November 15th, 2024, 3 o'clock. This is the Town of Dewey Beach monthly town council meeting. It's being held at the Life Saving Station as well as via Zoom. With that, I'd like to convene the town commissioners meeting, and with the opening ceremonies, Pledge of Allegiance. Please remove your hats and stands. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Next, roll call. Commissioner Bauer.
Present.
Commissioner Gibbings.
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski. Commissioner Persinger.
Here.
And Mayor William Stevens is also here, so we have a quorum. First item, can I have a motion for adopting the agenda?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Committee reports. Commissioner Jasinski.
No update.
Commissioner Gibbings.
No reports.
Commissioner.
Yeah, the Climate Change Committee is scheduled to meet tomorrow morning, beginning at 10:30. There's an agenda posted for that meeting. And in connection with that, I should also mention there is a meeting on Tuesday that the town of South Bethany organized, and they'll have representatives from all of the coastal towns to talk about resiliency issues. I'm planning to attend. One of the committee members is planning to attend, and I think someone from the town will be there as well, either Bill or Jim Dedes. It's a great opportunity, I think, for us to hear more about what other towns are doing, how they're struggling with this resiliency issue. And it's also a good opportunity for us to make the kinds of contacts that we need to have about the key people who are working in each of those towns. And then the only other report is the Charter and Code Committee is planning to meet on December the 11th at 5 p.m. The agenda has not been posted for that meeting yet.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Bauer.
The Finance Committee is scheduled on December 13th. We haven't figured out the time of day yet, but
Correction, it's been moved to Monday.
it's moved to Monday. Okay, I'm corrected. So that's scheduled, that's coming up?
15th.
15th, okay,
At 5 p.m.
at 5 p.m. And then Marketing Committee, we're still looking for a chair. So anybody know anybody with a sales background or marketing background? Please give me a call.
Thank you, sir. Next item, can I have an approval of the October 18, 2024 meeting minutes?
Motion?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Town staff updates. Are we swearing in a pup?
We will be.
Okay, we'll hold off on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and hello, everybody, and welcome to our meeting today. I'd like to thank everybody who took part in our Halloween celebration during the month of October. Huge success. The police department did an outstanding job. I mean, the weather was perfect. Dewey Beach Business Partners, Highway 1, the Rudder, had a great setup down there near the lighthouse. We had a huge turnout. There was lots of activities for the kids to do, and thank you to all the volunteers that actually came out and helped us with that. It was a huge success. The chief may bring some other information up about that. Today, the bids went out for the new town hall. They were posted on our town webpage under the RFP. They will be posted until January 7th. There's a process we'll be following during that time, but the contract's out there for folks to bid on it. Bird ban still in effect till the fire marshal lifts that. The Hyatt is having, and Dewey Beach Business Partners having their holiday/Christmas tree December 7th at 5:30 down on the Baywalk. There's also a Hanukkah celebration on December 29th at 5 p.m. down at the Hyatt. The town has been working over the last couple days to clear the ditches down on King Charles Street from Chesapeake to Carolina. We did that last month. We've got a bush hog in there. We cleared it from basically Carolina up to close to Cullen Street. Just trying to get that cleared out so we can get the water flowing at that end of town. What I would ask though is that folks not rake their leaves into our ditches. Over on Bayard Avenue in the area of Bayard and Sweet Street, it's pretty apparent that people are taking their leaves and dumping them into the ditches over there, and it's causing some problems with some of the drainage. DelDOT, as I'm going to keep saying this, has pushed the paving until the fall of 2025. And then the other DelDOT project, which is to work on the sidewalks here in town, you'll see some surveyors out this week. You'll see some markings out in the center island. They're preparing to come in the first week of December to start their project to improve the sidewalk and improve other safety items in town, including at the crosswalks. I'm happy to report all the evaluations are done. This is 4 years in a row that we've had our performance evaluations done for all our town employees. It hadn't been done in the past. Thank you to the chief and everybody else for getting those into me. It's good to see those coming in, and with the information that we put on those, so people know their goals and objectives and what they're responsible for. I've been working with the Archives Department for the state on getting this location as a historical location and getting a marker. I put in an application, wrote something up on it, and also the state did. When we took possession of this property from the state, the Secretary of State, Bullock, he had his team also put an application to make this a historical location. Not the building, the actual location, because this was where the lifeguard station was. So that's in the works. I talked to the archives. They said it's about an 8 to 10 month process to get it approved and then get the actual placard made and have it put up. We'll be talking about mailboxes later today. I talked to the postmaster about that. Van Dyke Street. We had a meeting yesterday over at the University of Delaware in Lewis, myself, Todd Fritchman represented Envirotech, the county was there, DENREC was there, Water Conservation was there, University of Delaware was there, and we're looking at solutions for the flooding on Van Dyke Street. Of course, you know there's 2 pipes in the middle of the beach on Van Dyke Bayside. The water comes up through those pipes, floods the street during extreme high tides. We're looking for a way to remove those pipes. There's 3 goals there. One is to mitigate the flooding on the street. One is to remove those pipes so it's no longer a safety hazard on that public beach. And the third one is to get the water out and away from the beach that does flood that area and try to help the environment with that. So we met yesterday. We have a $37,000 grant that we got from DENREC. We will be meeting with the Infrastructure Committee sometime in December to look for some additional funding so we can go through with a study and find out what needs to be done to make that happen. Also on Jersey Street, we got the results back from the testing of the ground. We are going to be able to use French drains up on Jersey Street in the 1st and 2nd block. That'll save us some money instead of putting storm drains all the way down to King Charles. We got $53,000 in a CTF grant from Representative Schwarzkopf and Senator Huxtable on that. So we'll be using that $53,000, and we're going to need some additional funding on top of that from infrastructure. And we'll be asking them, we'll have briefings with the Infrastructure Committee that hopefully gets to the commissioners sometime in December. We came in possession recently of $23,000, and what happened was I wrote a request for CTF funding for bicycle racks. We're going to be able to purchase 12 of those racks. We'll be putting new racks up and down on the beach side of the streets, so every street but New Jersey Street. And then also $17,000 of that will be used for a mobile messaging board. So when we have Halloween, when we have events here in town, we won't be relying on DelDOT all the time and asking them if they can provide a board that we could put up at one or the other end of town to ask people to slow down, and there's congestion and everything. But this is another public safety thing we've been working on to get done. Pending any questions, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
I don't have any questions. Council, any questions for the town manager? No. Okay, not seeing any.
Good work.
Okay, chamber update.
Dewey Rehoboth Chamber, right?
Yes, correct.
Dewey Rehoboth Chamber.
That's right.
Okay,
Back to order.
well, thank you for giving me a moment to bring you up to date. I want to start with the state short-term rental tax. I have been inundated with questions about that. And basically, if you are renting a property, 4.5% needs to be collected, and you're the owner of the property, you need to have a business license from the state. It's $25. This has nothing to do with your municipal tax, okay? It's not even mentioned in there. The county, however, they already can, on hotels and motels, they can add an additional 3% onto the 8% that hotels and motels collect countywide. We're waiting to see what happens on that. And I've been asked a lot about the distribution. Where's that money go, Carol? Well, 62.5% goes to the state general fund, okay? 12.5 goes to Beach Preservation Fund, 12.5 to Convention and Visitors Bureau. What's that? Well, each county has a chamber of commerce, right? Whatever amount percent came out of that zip code, so we're 19971, So whatever is collected in this area, the chambers in their area, their geographic zip code, receives back 12.5% of this, okay? With our chamber, let me finish, and 12.5 goes to Delaware Tourism. In the case of our chamber, this money has to be used for marketing, period. And I have to prove it. So if I spent $50,000 on some ad situation, I better be able to tell you how many people I got back and prove it. I need a zip code, I need a name. Not all chambers are like that, but we're like that, and we get a third of our budget. So if the chamber's budget is $1 million, a third of it comes from that accommodation tax, but I can't, it has to be marketing, and I have to be able to prove it. All the chambers are a little bit different, but that's what we have to do, just so you know that. What is a short-term rental? Anything where the stay is less than 31 days. Okay? This doesn't affect a year-round rental or seasonal rental, that type of thing. The tax does not include municipal taxes, linen, rental fees, cleaning fees, insurance fees, security deposits, doesn't include any of that. And if the stay is canceled, whoever owns that piece of property has to provide that money back, okay? It's supposed to go into effect January of this year. We're trying to get some further clarification on this, but I think we will see any funding from this back into those areas, probably until August, September, something like that. Okay? Have any questions on that?
Is it still on the honor system for people to do that, or is the state tracking it somehow?
That's going to be interesting. That's one of the questions people are asking, because you must have a business license. But you're my neighbor, and I'm wondering, you're renting that place out, and I'm wondering, did you get a business license? Mm-hmm. Oh, I ask you, you say
You need
yeah.
two, you need one from the town and one from the state.
Yeah, yeah. So, it adds to the confusion to me. I like simplicity and consistency. Of course, the funds are almost always appreciated by all the different areas, but it is confusing.
Yeah,
So
I
we'll
ask
see
that
what
for
happens.
selfish reasons, because we want everybody to pay their share to us and also the
Yes.
state.
It doesn't in any way touch municipal collections of taxes in any way. Let's see, so that was a lodging tax.
Can I ask a question?
What?
Does the town have any obligation with respect to the state permit? I mean, let's say we have a requirement for everyone to have a rental license who's renting their property here in town. And, we collect, or we don't collect the rent, but we collect the accommodations taxes, but
Correct.
there's no obligation for the town to make sure that those people who are leasing their property are fully consistent with state requirements as well?
Well, I see you're looking
I
to me.
defer.
I don't know the answer to that, but it would be unusual if the law was written in such a way as to impose a responsibility on the town. So it's a good question, and I need to look into it, but I wouldn't expect that the law would say such a thing.
Okay.
And I haven't seen anything that implies that in any way. It's really up to the individual. You're renting this property, you better get a state license for $25, and you better turn the funding in.
Carol, one other question / clarification. If I heard you correctly at the chamber event, the state will also impose a maximum of 3% for municipalities to charge if they don't have a fee in right now.
No, according to this, the municipalities the 3% is a county tax.
So it's has nothing to do with what we charge.
And
Okay.
nothing that I have
Okay.
has
Then
indicated
misunderstood.
that.
Thank you.
You're on your own.
So the county has not imposed anything yet.
Correct.
And several of the municipalities are collecting far more than that.
Yeah, we're the only ones at 3.
Okay, okay.
More fair than it.
Okay.
Sorry, his mic was off.
The other thing I wanted to mention is Sea Witch, thank you for all the help. We had over 400 sponsors and volunteers. It was amazing. We have some issues we gotta fix, but it's all fixable. We had, and the way we count this is I have a traffic count and I have a drone. So if I have the drone footage, I can say, well, so many people per square inch in there, right? If I don't have that, I have to go by traffic count and a formula. But we know for sure, we had 45,000 on Friday, which was actually less than last year. Don't know why. 115,000 on Saturday, that was 15,000 more. And on Sunday, we had 60,000. So you're looking at, 220,000 people over the 3 days. So it was a success. Let me see, Santa's House on the Boardwalk opens on the 29th and the 30th. And I wanted to ask you, Bill, you had said that the Hyatt was having a tree lighting, I think sometime in December.
December 7th.
Okay, and I had gotten information that Dewey Beach tree lighting on the 30th, that's a separate one? Okay,
We're a huge town. We're a mile long. We need 2 trees and
I got you.
a menorah.
That's okay. There's an accommodation holiday lobby decorating contest. It's already begun. December 1st begins. And the annual Christmas party, which I hope everybody comes to, is again going to be at Dogfish Head. We are going to have a band again, so bring your dancing shoes. And visitor guides in progress. If you have marketing that you want out there and you let me know, this is something we can help you with by including that in that guide. But I need to know because it goes to the printer mid-January. So it's almost completely sold out, okay? Okay. Anything else?
When did you
Okay,
say the
thank you.
holiday party was again? The holiday party?
That is on
I think it's the
December-
11th.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Carol.
I'd like to open up right now for non-agenda item public comment. So if anyone here has public comment for an item that's not on the agenda, I'd ask you to come forward or come through on Zoom. No one here is on Zoom and no one's coming forward, so we'll move on to action items. The first item is to review the October financials. Did Chief?
I am ready for the dog.
Oh, I didn't think the dog was here. That's
He
why
is here now.
I was trying to give you moments.
No, we're ready, and I have my stuff to go over as well.
We're going to go back to the original agenda and now have the chief bring in our newest member.
Our newest member, Canine Odin. Mr. Mayor, if you want to stand up
You
here,
got it.
there's your oath.
No idea.
You didn't put your treats in your pocket?
Great.
Do you have your treats in your pocket?
I have no treats, no bacon.
Okay.
So Corporal Eppery's going to come in with his new canine partner, Odin, and he'll introduce you to him and talk about him a little bit, and then they'll swear him in.
There he is.
I apologize, I'm a little dirty. Just got back from the track. So this is Canine Odin. He's a 3-year-old German Shepherd. He's trained on narcotics detection as well as food odor detection. So he's going to be good at finding people, missing people, and the location of any kind of evidence that was lost, as well as narcotics. We've been on for 3 weeks now. We've already had 4 deployments already. So he's doing his job, and we'll be out and about in town, so feel free to come say hi.
Odin, these are the good people.
Yes.
Can you
friends
tell
at?
us how old he is and his treats and all that?
Yeah, so he's like I said, he's 3 years old. His birthday is on the 25th actually. So he likes to play ball. Ball is life for him. So he'll do anything for ball.
What's his favorite treat?
That's not
That's mine too.
healthy. Yeah, it's very healthy.
All right, I'm ready.
All right.
Paul?
I tried it. It didn't quite get there.
All right. Repeat after me. We, Corporal Epke Kenine Odin,
We Canine Odin,
okay, do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that we will uphold,
that we will uphold,
support,
support,
and defend
and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Delaware,
and the Constitution of the State of Delaware,
that we will fairly
that we will fairly
and equally
and equally
enforce the laws
enforce the laws
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the State of Delaware
of the State of Delaware
and the town of Dewey Beach,
and the town of Dewey Beach,
and that we will discharge
and that we will discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of the town
town
of Dewey Beach
Dewey Beach
K-9 team
K-9 team
according to the best of our ability
according to the best of our ability
and with fidelity.
and with fidelity.
Subscribed and sworn by me this date. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Good job. Good job.
I can, you sure?
You can pet him.
Definitely.
You can pet him if you'd like.
Not working.
You're a good one.
Good boy, Odin. Good boy. I think Commissioner Gibbons would like to pet him.
Yeah. Oh, look at the paw coming up too.
Now we're gonna get searched.
Don't try to fall.
Thank you, Corporal Lefty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. Any other updates, Chief?
I do. All right, so we met with our PAC, our Police Accountability Committee yesterday in Ocean View, and we actually added another police agency, which is Dagsboro. They will now be joining us. And we talked about the importance, they all have to get, each member has to get 20 hours of training. So we're gonna start doing, our PAC members are gonna start doing ride-alongs, and we're gonna start offering more training for them, such as CPR, AED, things like that. Try to get them going to the courthouses, the jails, and everything to learn more about law enforcement and police work. Basically, their main responsibility is to assist us with each of our towns, to discuss issues, maybe to help us to do things better, to review policies and make recommendations. Their position is not, they don't get involved in internal investigations or anything like that. So we're a step of a lot of other people. This was supposed to be formed over a year ago, so our PAC is formed and we're moving ahead and we're doing really well with that. So you are going to see our PAC members starting to come on ride-alongs next month and doing some other things with us.
Chief, this was required by the state, correct?
It was required by the
So-
state, so it's basically a law that every agency has to be either form their own PAC or they have to be involved in a PAC. So we also met, we went to a meeting, we've become part of the advisory board for the Sussex Technical High School. And we will be helping them, they run competitions and they need role players and judges as well as different types of training that we're going to help them with. The great thing about this program is that could also help us with our future hiring of our seasonals because they are in the criminal justice program. And a lot of these young people want to be police officers or somewhere in the criminal justice field. So we are going to be partnering with them and helping them when we can and being involved in their competitions. And hopefully we'll be able to get a few seasonals out of it. We already opened up our applications for seasonals and our first interviews are on December 10th. I believe we're going to be interviewing already 6 people. I believe we're going to have 1 or 2 returners from last year. So we're really going to probably have a mostly new staff this year. As I've explained before, most of our seasonals have already gotten hired by other agencies and are all in police academies right now. Our recruit is in the academy right now. He's doing great. I get a weekly report on him. He's had no issues, so he's doing very well. We plan on participating in multiple events coming up. The Pfeiffer's tree lighting, Dewey Dog will be riding on the fire truck. We are going to set up a table. We're going to be handing out some stuff for the kids there, so we'll have a presence there. We're going to be involved in the Rehoboth Parade. We'll have some officers helping just like we did with Sea Witch. And we're hoping to either put one of our, the UTV in the parade in front of the beach patrol's float or maybe Cliff's truck. We're going to have Dewey Dog ride on their float so that we're a unified agency. So Dewey Dog will be making her appearance at a lot of events. Hopefully she'll also show up at the tree lighting. We'll be walking around with her handing out candy canes to everybody. So that's our goal, is to have her at a lot of our events. We're already working on our public safety day for next year, trying to plan out the dates and work with our partners to get that going. We are doing the No Shave November again. I've allowed our officers to do that. That's why you're seeing them look a little scruffy. That will be for the month of November and December, and the ones that wanted to participate had to donate $50. And what we did today is 3 of us went to Walmart, and with the generous donations of our agency, we were able to provide we purchased 87 toys for Tots. And the Rehoboth Fire Company is going to do a Stuff the Truck on November 23rd at the Dewey Beer Company, who's sponsoring that event. So we're going to go drop off all our stuff and partner with them and advertise that. They're going to be stuffing the truck at multiple locations around the town. So I think that's a great event. So we're very happy with that program. And we will be purchasing our motorcycle soon. We got all our grant funding squared away for that to purchase the motorcycle, the used motorcycle, as well as helmets and the lights and stuff to go on the motorcycle. We have free training being provided by the university. Hopefully Sergeant Collin and PFC Buchert will be going to that the first week of December. So our motorcycles, hopefully, once we get everything purchased and put together, will be out in the next few months. So they'll be doing a lot of traffic and things like that. Our officers continue to do a lot of traffic enforcement at this time. We've slowed down a lot. So they're really, any complaint we get for traffic, we're doing it daily, trying to do a lot of traffic patrols. If they're told to get out of the cars, you should be seeing them on more foot patrols. We're going to be doing more business checks. So, as you all know, it's our slower time. So that's really our focus, is to be out and highly visible and doing a lot of traffic enforcement. Our stats for the month of October have obviously gone down because it's a slower time for us. We had 454 calls for service, 1 criminal arrest. We had 153 traffic citations written. We conducted 268 hours of traffic enforcement hours. We had 4 accidents, 40 parking citations, 1 civil citation, and we had 0 DUI arrests. So as you can see, this time around, we have a lot of people going to their training, and this next couple months, we do a lot of training and try to get that all accomplished, and then we're starting to gear up and prepare for our seasonal academy and get that going. So we're constantly doing
Wonderful.
something. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Chief? That's great. I will note for those,
You know I have to have my monthly report. Public urination.
Oh, let me see what I got. I don't know if I have any.
while she's looking up public urination for Commissioner Gibbings, I would like to ask everyone, if you
That
get
number
a
was
chance,
so high, and it has been dropping, and I love it.
We had one in October.
Okay, thank you.
Want to
Keep
stand
up
out?
the good work, yes.
thank you, Commissioner Gibbings. For anyone that's watching this, this past Monday was Veterans Day. Dewey Beach Police Department posted on their Facebook page not only their current photos of those that have served, but when they served. So it's an interesting view if you guys want to go out and see some of our police officers when they were in the military. So,
Absolutely. Some of us are very old now.
You look the same. You look exactly
getting old
the
to
same.
privilege,
That's
Chief.
correct, that's correct.
All right. Review October financial statements, number 1. Ms. Hall?
And by the way, I was able to review that ordinance, which is state law, House Substitute 2 for House Bill 168. There does not appear to be any obligation imposed on Dewey Beach
To inform or-
to enforce
Okay.
or collect.
The financials are on the website and for anyone's review. I'm sure all the commissioners have reviewed it, but no review.
I hope y'all can hear me. I can't hear, so. Transfer tax is continuing to scoot on along very nicely. Accommodations tax was due the month of October, and as I predicted, based on lodging tax being down, accommodations tax was up. We made budget with the October, and more is still coming in. So that's great. Lodging tax is still going down. Hopefully, around the holidays, it'll pick up a little bit. Our building permits, got a couple nice ones in this month, in October, and a couple more nice ones in November. So that's looking good. I included with the financials my predictions for projections. They're my traditional, very conservative on everything. But even with that, and with making March totally out of the ballpark, just up there, we still come out very nicely to the plus. And I'm sure that things will even out. But I wanted to get this out so that y'all can start looking, so that the Finance Committee can start looking. I'm going to give them my first draft budget in October, or in December. And it will be a negative budget. I want to show the worst possible, and then let's build from there. It'll show since it's predominantly a new finance committee, we'll get a lot of new ideas of how to approach stuff. And that's what I want to do, get some new ideas in there. In my back pocket, I've got a balanced budget almost totally worked out, but I don't want to hand that out. I want ideas, since this is y'all's town. And any questions?
Yes. On the expense side, how much of the overage that we are year to date is stuff that's being replenished by capital accounts, or is grant money came in and that's why the expenses look higher?
The majority of it.
The majority of it?
Especially on the police side.
Yeah, okay.
And I promised the chief that I would have for her after the November financials exactly marked up, exactly what is what, so she has an exact idea of everything.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple of comments and I guess questions as well. When we approved the budget, I believe it was last February, the approved operating budget had a surplus of $22,097.
Yeah.
And that was based on revenues, operating revenues of $5.335 million, and general fund operating expenditures of $5.313 million. And those latter two figures were reported in our audit report. But when I look at the financial summary for operating, it shows an approved budget operating deficit of $60,903. Clearly, there's an explanation for that, and you could provide that. But my problem is, what I would like to see us have is a consistent set of numbers. We ought to be able to see a financial summary for the operating budget that matches, on a total aggregate basis, that matches what we approved in our budget last February. And it makes it difficult for us to understand exactly, what the differences are. Because we really want to know how much it costs basically to operate the town. Clearly, there's lots of grant money. The town's been increasingly adept at finding and gaining grant money and using it to good purpose, certainly. We talked at the workshop that we had last month about a lot of the accounting rules that govern how that gets reported. But still, we need, at least in my view certainly, is that we need to have a set of operating reports that match what we approved in the operating budget. If you look at what's included here as a summary, overall summary, it looks even worse. It looks like we approved a deficit of $408,903. We clearly didn't do that. I would like to see something that's much more consistent. And that just let me finish. With respect to projections, the projections are great, but again, it should, the detail in those projections should really roll up to an overall summary, financial summary for the operating budget, so that we can look at the individual line items within that financial summary and then go to the detail and see, where we thought we were going to be in terms of the line items that make up each of those items in the financial summary, and then see what you're projecting for the rest of the year. I want to feel like we're really getting good, sound, accurate information. I don't want the Finance Committee and then us to make the decisions on what the next year's budget needs to be and make some decisions about revenue. And then at the end of the year, find out that we had a lot more surplus than we thought we were going to have. And that is something that has happened, in other places. And I don't want us to see us in the same kind of situation. So those are my thoughts. Hopefully we can see some reports that have better consistency.
Yeah, I'll have to look at what the budget, because I specifically pulled up my revised approved budget off my saved files to verify that the 69 was what it was, and I'll verify that again. That's, because I specifically
We have a problem with terminology too. You're talking about approved budget, and then we're talking about approved operating budget. I think operating budget. Yeah, that's the one that I think that we focused on, and because that's the basic cost of, paying the salaries and all of the general operating costs of the town. The approved budget has some additional things, and I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think we need to sort out some of that terminology. And the last point too is if what I'm asking is really difficult to produce, then we ought to know what it would take to make it easier for you to produce it. And then we can make some decisions about what additional resources you might need.
One of the things that'll make it easier, is on my wish list for an additional software module
Edmonds?
and we're gonna put in the budget that'll make it, I'll just push a button, I won't have to do all these calculations. The reason on the operating, when we take out the allocations to building, or to streets and to the rainy day and all, is because, as Mr. Kinney said, that's an expense. So if we're taking it out of our operating cash and putting it elsewhere, it is an expense. So that's why it's showing there. I will verify that number. When I did the projections, everything that I can, this overall sheet, you can match, this is the budget sheet that I used. Are you looking to have one of the summary sheets with projections and then have supporting documents for that, or?
Yeah, I think that would be if we had a financial summary that has, based on the operating budget, and there was a column in the approved budget, the budget document that we approved back in February, there was a column for the operating budget. If we had a financial summary that matches those totals, and then it had projections for each of those line items that roll up into a projection for the line items in the financial summary, that would really be ideal.
Okay.
And again, if there's a need for additional things, maybe this additional module is what you need. But, I think we should give you the tools that you need to have so that you can do your job in an efficient way, and we can get the kind of information that we need to make some decisions.
Okay, I appreciate that. I can definitely do that. That's easy. Anything, I'll work on anything.
And if you have any questions, just, get in touch with me, send me an email, whatever.
Commissioner Persick, if I could ask you to send the other commissioners what the budget that you're looking at that may be different, because the one that I had does tie to the 69,968 that we have, and I may be looking at the wrong budget.
Which tab are you on?
Let me go back to,
This is from the budget from February.
Okay.
And
this is
69,968.
the budget package, yeah. Okay, that's a matter of terminology. That's the FY25 budget, but what I'm focusing on here is really the general fund. That FY25 budget has some additional things, and I'm not sure exactly what they are, but it's really that general fund, which I think of as the operating budget. There's what I have. So there's the 69.
Yeah, you and I
there's the
have- that's
22.
exactly
So
what I'm
we're
looking at.
talking about different
Okay.
columns, yeah.
All right, we will get that information. Thank you, Sheena. David, did you have questions?
That was my only question I had.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Sheen.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Number 2, presentation and discussion by Dewey Beach Patrol Captain Todd Fritchman regarding the 2024 Beach Patrol statistics. Captain?
Good afternoon, Todd Fritchman, Captain Dewey Beach Patrol. I'd like to take the opportunity for objective number 1, and that is to present the 2024 seasonal statistics report for the summer. Not sure if everyone has already received the report, but the introduction is pretty standard, other than the names of the leadership, which I should mention, obviously. Myself as captain, department chair, lead instructor, and then my senior lieutenants, Michael Thompson, Liam Zoper, Hank Kovaleski, Jason Kaiser, Lewis Harrington, and Ben Sala were the leadership team that did all the training and certifications of the lifeguards throughout the course of the year and help with operations. We also have our daily operations schedule built into the statistics report, so if anyone wants to see how we function in terms of time, service over time, it shows that graphically. Then we show in our report here the services that we provide, which are obviously open water rescue, Ocean Bay, emergency medical services, handicapped access services, beach event management, beach ordinance enforcement and outreach. night patrol on assigned events, which now is essentially the 4th of July evenings for Rehoboth and Dewey fireworks. Marine, avian, reptile stranding and disposal, that is a big deal. Dewey is a funnel for the deposit of marine reptiles, marine mammals, and other organisms. So we have a program in place with the Mayor Institute, and typically we end up burying those animals here on site as part of a federal protocol, so we follow that protocol. Junior lifeguard program, which continues to grow and develop and just become an amazing success. We're experiencing an amazing return because I think 90% of our lifeguards went through our junior lifeguard program. So to me, that proves it works, and they stay with us. Youth and adult recreational program in the evenings from July 2nd until about the first week of August. That fluctuates based on staffing and whatnot. Trash and debris removal, fecal matter cleanup, tri-state bird rescue and procedures, incident command for any big incidents, traffic accidents where EMS or any EMS need is, and of course we cross-train with the police on that. We provided a exemplary competition team. Again, I'll highlight that briefly in the report. Bay rescue and proximal marine life activity evacuations, which is now a big deal for some reason. The marine life increases and its proximity to the shoreline is getting more and more each year with the Manhattan schools, the bunker, that bring in the large predators underneath of them. We don't use that S word. We say marine activity because it literally does stimulate chaos. So we say marine activity, we clear the water, and we don't count that anymore. We just gave, the numbers are too many. It's not a data point we really need to be tracking, I don't think. Very difficult. So in statistics, open water rescues and assists, we had 6 open water rescues and 4 assists. And the numbers are low relative to other municipalities. Remember, we don't have jetties and groins or hindrances. Dewey is a free float with the longitudinal current. And the other reason is that we had one of the most mild summers that I've ever witnessed. There were no storms. There was no big wind events, except for the last 2 weeks of summer when the hurricane came up, and then that's when we had our rescues. So in a nutshell, just to drive this home, to explain the summer in one word, it was harmonious. It was the most harmonious summer that I've ever seen. There were literally no problems other than managing the people. That's a big deal. And then the EMS responses that we conduct, but there wasn't anything out of status quo on that. So emergency medical services, 21 majors. A major means that we have to call in advanced life support and transport. The statistics outline all those different things, everything from cardiac arrest, triage, traumatic injury from car accident, whatever it may be. Missing persons, we had 10, obviously all actively recovered very quickly, otherwise you would have known about that, I'm sure. Beach evacuations, we had, again, contributing to the mild, harmonious summer that I was talking about, only 1. That was really down, and for lightning, we had to clear for lightning. Big thunderstorms, we only had 1. We had to clear the water 4 times, but then things moved out pretty quickly. So. Civil code violations, we called for police interventions 4 times. We did have over 3,000. We had over 3,000, between 3,000 and 4,000 interventions, and that is by handing out the slips or verbally telling the people to put the alcohol away. The consumption is illegal. And so that is a huge deal here for one of the things that I want to talk about in my recommendations going forward for the socioeconomic component of this, to prevent spew over. Everyone stays down here all day, pounding them down, and they spew over the dune line into the streets, intoxicated. And then PD's got a mess, we all got a mess, so we're doing our best to lessen that liability. So liability prevention is what we're doing. Very quickly, I got to mention the competition team again. It was the first time in history that collectively Delaware teamed up together, as we always do, as the Sussex County Life Saving Association as one team. And we did, the first time in history, win the national championship. I didn't crunch the numbers because I'm just afraid to go there and start trouble, to be honest with you. But I think Dewey may have been the largest team contributor to our success. I think we won more points than anyone else. We had 2 national champions. We had a second and fourth place. So when you do all the points, I think we were the show, to be honest with you. I didn't, like I said, I'll know for a fact. Youth recreation program had over 120 participants, ages 6 to 16. And going into my recommendations section here, if I can find it, did I lose it? This is important. Oh, contributors. Part of what we do in terms of the youth recreation program and the junior lifeguard program, we subsidize, and Sheena does an excellent job of helping us manage all this money. We have contributors that do donate. I want to mention their names because that's important. Mr. Preston Shell, Miss Sally and Mr. McCoy, Mr. Rob Henthorn, Miss Beth Caruso, Rehoboth by the Sea, Miss Savannah Segrist, Sand Sharks Volleyball Club, Miss Rita Poor, Seabreeze Homeowners Association, Mr. David Ellen, Megan Holtzclaw and the Rusty Rudder and the Highway 1 group, Woody's Beach Bar and Grill, Gary Surf and Spray, the Starboard, Grotto's Pizza, and Dewey Yoga contributed to our campaign with all these community outreach events. Recommendations, the important stuff. All events permitted or sanctioned by the town be placed, that will take place on the beach during our guarded hours or when we're not on duty, so for awareness and liability and safety and checking things, assisting in checking things, that we be announced what they are, and we have a process for that, so that continues, we're good. I always have to recommend dogs and cats are leashed when using the facility. There were not any human injuries this year, but there were quite a few dog fights that were pretty serious dog fights that we had to intervene in and try to separate dogs, which is virtually impossible. But just throwing that out there for safety as my objective. 3, significant wage increase in attempt to be consistent with surrounding municipalities. Obviously, that is a huge one. And I do need to spend a minute on that. Again, please remember that the socioeconomic significance of the beach patrol is liability prevention. To prevent death and dying, injury, exasperated injury if one does occur, but immediate response to an injured person anywhere in town. So the value of that versus what some of these municipalities have recently gone through with liability payouts for death and dying and exasperated injury, if you do the analysis there, you're looking at millions versus what our salary range may be. But anyway, to cut to it, Rehoboth has gone now, my collaborations with the town manager and the other captains above $20 an hour, Sea Colony way above $20 an hour, Ocean City above $20 an hour, Bethany Beach above $20 an hour. So we are way down here.
So that's
Way-
their starting pay that
that's
they're
their-
proposing in those locations. That would be their rookie starting pay, not considering their 4 or 5 year their lieutenants.
So we have to obviously try to increase ours some. I have proposed in my budget submittal $19 an hour as the starting salary. That still puts us $1 more than $1 under what the other municipalities have. But I got to boast, I think our program sells itself. People want to be here for a reason. I don't want to get into all those reasons, but we have to make an attempt to keep them because we have lost significant people. We've lost command structure. We've lost people that are tenured and that we certified and that we have trained in investment. We've lost them and they have complained to the town manager on their own. Like they didn't come through me to do it. They've gone to the town manager and explained they can't afford it. So anyway, we want to try to match that. That is in the recommendations and in my budget presented to the town. The operational starts, dates, and finishes are also in my submittal, so we've established those already. If the town decides that they want before or after those dates, then we would have to be notified in order to secure the staffing. And I believe that was, I can't remember what the dates are. I don't have the budget with me. But they're on there. It's clear. We want the mass marketing and educational outreach to motels, hotels, and businesses that alcohol use and possession on the facility is prohibited, to keep whatever mechanism we have for that going, to try to keep as much off as possible, signage and whatnot. We don't want any motor vehicles on the beach being operated from 9:30 to 4 p.m. because there's too many people and we got too many vehicles driving up and down the beach with trucks and trailers and all this, that, and the other thing going on, and so that's a liability within itself. There has been times where I've witnessed myself, these vehicles coming too close to people's feet, laying out there, other things, so that is important. No motor vehicles on the beach, yeah, I kind of said that already, that's a repeat. Oh, here's another one that we thought would be important, to help subsidize the labor and the costs of the handicap access service that we provide. We have proposed, the Beach Patrol would like to see a credit card system used to reserve and rent the vehicle, the handicap access chair that we buy, the town buys them, for $10 a usage. That way we can track it, we have everything on place, they can't get away, we got their credit card. We've already got an email system in place for reserving. I think the credit card thing, we did 300 and some uses this year, 300 and some different services. So $10 I don't think is much to ask, that we might be able to buy 2 more chairs a year, something to that effect. So I would recommend that. Ordinance creation, again, we kind of revisiting this to give us some authority to regulate sports activities, flying objects, and any activity that can harm an individual, that can harm people, that we can actually regulate that with our, we do it anyway, but there's no law. Replacement of any and all lifeguard stands that are dilapidated. We do have, our lifeguard stands are more than 40 years old, most of them. So we've replaced some each year, but we really need to have, some are completely toast now, we need to get new ones. And then replacement of our Kawasaki quad that was originally donated by the Starboard 11 years ago, and it's on its last leg. Your lifespan is way gone on that. And I don't feel as though we should still be using it for responses, because you can put your foot through the floor with the rust and everything. We need to replace it. So those are my recommendations. And at that point, I think there's also questions maybe about the tents and canopies, but I'm open to anything.
Well, before we go there, let's open it up to council for any comments or questions.
Yeah, I had a question. What would be the total cost of the town to achieve parity in wages, or at least approach parity? Do you know what that figure would be?
I do have that, and it's all in my.
If I could, when Todd came with his proposed budget to Sheena and I, he's already got his budget done for the next year. It's going to be close to $50,000 increase. If we go with the $19 and then look at the seniority of the other people that come back and the lieutenants. So this is going to be one thing that Sheena talked about earlier, would be showing that negative number. And then we're going to have to work on, if we want to be competitive with the other towns, where are we going to get the revenue for those? Or where do we have to cut things to get the revenue, right? So.
Thank you. Yeah, and of course my budget's there with them. It breaks it all down.
So we're looking at 50,000, but if we went to 20, how much more would that be?
I'd have to do the numbers. I don't know.
I don't know how many hours, how many man hours we have.
I could bang that number out pretty quick, but right now, no way.
What was the hourly rate this year?
$17.
17, so you got 17 to 19, so
Right, it's roughly
whatever that percentage increase would be.
50
I
becomes
figured in my
75.
head I would do that.
I would like to add, Commissioner Purser, if I may, that the lifeguards here are USLA certified professional lifeguards. In other words, they have to be certified nationally by the US or the Delaware State Fire School as EMRs. That's like a college course that they got to come in here at night in the middle of the summer. 16-year-olds, you can imagine that? And it's like a college course. So then they have to be certified 23 days of physical training and applied rescue response training before they can even go into lifeguard status. So, and they also have to take those written and physical tests, and then that gets submitted, and then they get certified. So it is a profession. Hold that into account if you don't mind. It's not like we're just taking the old days when Bill and I were lifeguards. You came to work and they told you what to do, and you just went. Yeah, it's different now. It's all different.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So, Captain, you know that I am a huge fan of I call them yellow warning cards,
Yes.
that you're not supposed to be doing this, and here's your warning.
Very good.
3,000, do you have data as to what it was the prior year?
I don't. We didn't tabulate that. This
I-
was the first year that I captured that.
Because that seems like a very big number. And I was wondering if the fact that more warnings were given meant that the police had to be called in less.
No,
perhaps.
there was
Still.
less warnings given this year than prior years, and we
Okay.
had to call the police less this year than prior years, much significantly. It's about 50% drop.
Okay.
The reason why is because it's effective, it's working. We started this 3 years ago, and it's worked. It is really working. And people expect us to come. They're waiting for us almost, they're waiting.
I'm going to do it till I get caught.
And so it's been very effective, and that's why I'm calling it, I said it was harmonious, because it's more flatlined here in terms of everything that we had to do.
Could you track that
like
for us
200
for
a
next
week.
year? Like how many?
Sure.
Thank you.
And we do those, we make those cards ourselves at Town Hall, and then we also have one for marijuana and loud music that the lifeguards have the ability to hand out. So it's just not walking up and saying, hey, you're drinking. It says, welcome to Dewey Beach, but you are violating, and if you don't, the police will be called, and people have been complying. So it's been working.
I've watched it in action. Thank
And
you.
just as clarification, Captain, you made a comment that about the cars, vehicles on the beach between 9:45 and 4:30. We, last year, I believe, eliminated anybody from being able to drive on our beach outside of that period. But wouldn't the only cars be the people like Lanham who's running up and down? Wouldn't it be the beach vendor?
Could be, yes.
Okay.
It's probably the beach vendor.
And in the contract with the vendor, it says the captain has the ability to hold all vehicles on the beach, even the vendor,
Okay.
if he feels that it's a public safety hazard. And usually what Todd will do is he'll call me and say, hey, Bill, we got to stop. The beach is too crowded. And I'll say, yeah. And then I'll reach out to Lynham
Okay.
and let him know that we're ceasing vehicles on the beach.
Okay, great. Any other questions for Captain? Captain, do you also want to provide some comments for the next, you want to just stay there while I read this out loud?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is there pictures?
Number 3, discuss a recommendation from the Charter and Code Review Committee to amend Chapter 1 and Chapter 65 of the Code to regulate the use of canopies and tents on the beach.
Yes.
So I don't want to keep you too long.
If we could,
Yeah.
I got an image. So over the summer, when I realized this was becoming an issue, I did a lot of photo documentation on different days, but these are just to take a look at. So I measured the standard width of a beach umbrella that Lynham supplies or that we have, and it's the same supplier on our lifeguard stand. So we've got 7-foot width. The ones we have here are, we call a standard beach umbrella, wooden pole and everything. The kind have been out there that I know of for 40-some years. 7 foot wide, so 2 of those together, 14 feet total. Typically, it takes 2 to house a family unit. Now, when I say a family unit, what we have here in Dewey is a family town now. It is strictly little grandkid all the way to great grandmother. They're all under there together. You can see in the picture. So take that into consideration in your decision making. That that's based on reality, not idealism, realism on what it really takes out there to put shade and wind protection. So the Beach Patrol does wish the commissioners to take that into consideration. We've spent 20 or 30 years now, almost for me, converting into a family town. That was the objective. And now we have that. We don't want to start chasing families away. because they don't have any way to shade themselves or protect themselves. So we recommend to take into consideration of the widths, the tent language. We had no problem with the tent language. So, you know, tents, that's fine, as long as people can protect themselves from the sun and the UV. I'm not worried about sidewalls and stuff like that. But the other thing, I think it would be impractical. I did read the language where it said 15 feet behind the lifeguard stand. If I read that correctly, I think that would be a little excessive. We don't have any, we maintain our sight lines. A lifeguard, we will physically move people, stuff, if they are in our way. Literally, we will move it. So we don't really have a problem with that. But if it is a law and language, that's fine, but we would make that 10 foot behind the sight line. So I think that's what I said, it was 10 foot behind the lifeguard stand essentially, because the beach ebb and flows. We don't always have a 50-foot beach. We don't always have a 100-foot beach. Sometimes it erodes and then we only have 30 feet. If you're taking half of it away, we've got to give some room to accommodate. So where the lifeguard stand, that dictates the setup zone while we're on duty. And if it was 10 foot behind the lifeguard stand, that would give us more room to accommodate the constituency, the users. Other than that, I don't really have any more input into it. We don't have complaints from from people. I think the complaints are from, you know, whoever local people that have come to the town manager and expressed. The one bit of language there, setting up before 9 a.m. This is the first season where there was a drastic and dramatic change. Like unbelievable dramatic and drastic change on early morning setup before we operate. People coming down, staking the claim, and then going back, waking everyone up, having breakfast, and then coming back down. That was a 100% shoreline coverage every day from Labor Day to Memorial Day, or Memorial Day to Labor Day. The whole line would be filled. So that is an issue, but at the same time, if you go to any beach resort in the world, it's the same situation. Everyone goes down to get the front. And vendors usually set up in the front first thing in the morning. So whatever you come up with on that, we'll be glad to assist with.
Quick question. Are you suggesting that umbrellas be covered by however we define a canopy? So any rules around a canopy apply to an umbrella as well? Is that kind of what your thought is, or no?
No, I was just using a parallel. Two umbrellas can house what you would call a full family unit.
Right.
And so a canopy of the same surface area.
Right.
Matching two umbrellas. To regulate smaller than that would be kind of a biased, this is my opinion now, I haven't, you know, because you got 14 feet with two umbrellas. So if you go smaller with a canopy, now you're not gonna be able to fit everyone under there.
Right.
So somebody's gotta sit out in the sun.
Kate, could you draw those pictures back up?
Yeah.
So, if I recall, yes, the bottom is a tent. And the top.
Neither of those would be considered tents, I'm sorry.
Okay, they're both canopies.
Canopies,
Okay,
yeah. That would be a canopy, if they had sides on them,
okay.
then that would be considered a tent. We want full visibility inside, but we do want to be able to shade the people.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Mr. Persinger?
Yeah, just let me be clear about what we have here today for consideration. We talked at the last meeting about the recommendations from the Charter and Code Review Committee. And as we talked it through, there were some additional points that, you know, some of the commissioners made that might be added. So what we have here today is just to capture both the recommendations that the Charter and Code Committee made, and then also the suggestions that were made by some of the commissioners. So, you know, what would be proposed here, if we captured all of those things, would be to make a couple of changes in definitions, a small change to the canopy definition, just to include the fact that it is portable, and then a new definition for a baby tent so that you could still have a shelter for an infant or, you know, a very small child, but there would be a limit in size of 36 by 36 by 36 for that kind of shelter. Then the use of tents and canopies, tents would not be permitted on the beach, and other than baby tents. And then there would be 4 criteria for the use of canopies on the beach. I used 12 by 12 here. I didn't have a better figure to use. It just seemed like a reasonable figure. I mean, I get your point with the 2 umbrellas being 7 by 7. I don't think it covers quite the same area because there's always a little tilt to the umbrella just, directed toward the sun to provide appropriate shade. So I don't think it takes up quite as much room as a 12 by 12 canopy would, or even certainly a 14 by 14 canopy. The idea of a canopy being no closer than 15 feet behind the line of lifeguard chairs, someone suggested 20, someone else suggested 10, so I picked the middle number of 15. I certainly wouldn't have any objection to 10. I don't know if anybody else would. The third point is a canopy shall be placed no closer than 10 feet from any other canopy. That's just to prevent, 2 or more canopies taking up a very large amount of real estate on the beach. And then the fourth point, I use 9 a.m. I don't know if there's a better time that anyone wants to suggest, or even if we want to go for this, but you mentioned the vendor that rents the umbrellas. I think that there is still in the contract a prohibition on the vendor setting up an umbrella ahead of time without having a specific customer who has rented that umbrella. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was a part of the original contract. I don't know if it remains a part of the contract. So those are the proposed for discussion possible amendments. We would make the same amendments potentially on the beach and baywalk section of the code as well. And that's really all I had on that.
Thank you, Gary, for that explanation. First of all, anyone here for other comments other than the captain in regards to tents? If you'd like to come on up. Mr. Gallagher?
My name is Harry Gallagher, from Clayton Street. I mean, after looking at the zoning, the Charter and Review Committee, they spent like about 40 minutes just discussing this alone out of a 60-minute meeting. And this kind of looks, two things. It looks like we're imposing some kind of requirement or policing on the lifeguards in one respect. And then the second thing is the enforcement of this thing. Mr. Zolper explained last meeting that the Rehoboth actually has enforcement people on the beach with tape measures and checking this and then citing people or telling them to get off the beach. Who's going to actually enforce this? I mean, are we going to put this on the lifeguards to enforce this? The other issue was brought up last time was that people, like you said, reserve it, where I've seen the umbrellas put up ahead of time, and most of these people had said to the umbrella person, I'm going to be here tomorrow, make sure my umbrella's here. So I don't know if that's like a contract basically with that person. So, they have first right once they get down there, they're sitting right on the beachfront area. So I don't really agree with the way this is laid out or going, and especially with the 10-foot thing. If you have an individual, a family that comes down, puts up a 12 by 12 canopy, and they got to put 10 feet away for grandma and the missus and whoever, and you're shouting at this other person 10 feet away. I mean, I don't see why we're putting these kind of regulations in place. So, just for 10 feet.
I hate being the prop.
That's about 10 feet, so. It's like, can you hear me down there, Grandma? How's it going down there, Grandma? So if you have two families going on, it seems to be, a crazy kind of scenario, and then the enforcement of this. So, that's all I got.
Thanks, Harry.
Thanks, Harry.
Any other comments? If I can ask you to come up. Correct.
Could you come up to the podium,
We
please?
need you on the microphone for.
On the microphone so that everyone can hear you
Oh,
and see you.
I don't have a big comment, it's just that there they're tough. I mean, I live on Carolina Street, and the canopies are getting, they seem like bigger and more crowded, and it's a bunch of kids with coolers and more kids with coolers and louder, and I'm just wondering, there's a lot of beaches that don't have them for a reason. So that's just a comment. I find them disruptive, and on real crowded days, they were really tough, like holiday weekends and stuff.
Understood.
Thank you. Commissioners? Comments? Wait.
I mean, I think we need to put something in place before next summer. We got some time, so, I mean, in concert with what, Todd kind of recommended, I think we should kind of get an ordinance drafted,
The one that has the legs that spread out, I don't know they're like spider legs or something like that. That typical one, the large size of that is 8 feet by 8 feet for perspective on a 12 feet by 12 feet. So it would be smaller. Those legs, however, extend way far out and into space, and people don't feel like they can walk under them to get to the beach, which I think is why, or to the ocean, which is, I think, the space. Maybe 10 feet is too much, maybe 5 feet works a little bit better. But yes, when they get lined up along, is it Captain the Crest? Is that what you would call it? The berm. The berm. If they get lined up along there, sometimes the only way to go is like through the lifeguard chair to get to the ocean. So some space, I think, is important, but maybe not 10 feet, so I don't have to yell down the way. And the spread out legs, what's next? Does that count within the,
Well, not if we're measuring the canopy.
because it's just the area under the
Unless you
canopy?
change the wording to footprint.
Yeah, some of them have associated windsocks. So you have a
Yeah.
canopy with a windsock on it, that the wind actually suspends the shade in the air, it's not attached.
Oh, that's another one that I'm talking
All
about.
different
That's,
kinds of newfangled design.
that's the arch one.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think what Commissioner Gibbons is referring to is the first picture that was up there where the sand.
Oh, you
were
mean the
out.
road supports?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah.
You gotta have those.
And if we were to do this, this would need to be something added to our little yellow warning card.
Commissioner Bauer?
Yeah, you know what, when we start regulating space, I mean, there's a lot of space events that we do. Skimboarding takes up space. I don't want to regulate space because I like skimboarding on the beach. I like people to enjoy themselves. But I do understand, if we put a time, like don't set up at 6 o'clock in the morning and come down at 2 in the afternoon. You're just grabbing space and not using it. And I think that's the complaint most people have. So I think putting an hour in there is a good thing. But then, I don't care how far back, pick a number. We just don't want them lined up everybody wants that front row. So, if you're gonna put up a tent, you can't have front row. You gotta be, row 10 or row 5 or whatever. So put them back, whatever distance we want to put there.
10 feet back is going to allow one person to be in front of canopies,
Right.
basically.
All right,
If you want an umbrella or
20.
chairs, you could be in the front row. Otherwise, you want something bigger, you
Right.
got to be a little further back.
But I agree with Todd. 2 umbrellas or 1 tent, it's the same amount of space.
Yeah.
So, people sit in circles when they sit on the beach too. How much space does that take up? We get into a whole bunch of, so I don't want to tie space into this at all, if possible. But yeah, you can't set up and you got to be X number of feet back. Let's pick 20. That's just the number I'm pulling out of my head. So you're in row 3. You're not in row 1 with the canopy.
Commissioner Persiger, any additional comments?
No, I would be fine with canopies being placed no closer than 10 feet behind the line of the lifeguard chairs. My concern here is I've been up to the beach a number of times and watching grandchildren. And, you want to be in a position where you can see them in the water and feel like they're safe. And if there's a canopy there, or a series of canopies, it makes it more difficult to do that. It's nicer you can always go take your chair and put it up, closer to the surf, but then you're sitting in the sun and you don't have any protection from the sun. And that's not one of my favorite things to do, is sitting in the sun.
You live at the beach.
Yeah, I understand, but I like to have something over my head. I think some accommodation there makes some sense. I would be fine with the provisions as written here, with the exception of changing 15 feet to 10 feet.
The only two changes that as I go through this, could it be that in number 3, any canopies of unrelated families or parties need to, so if you do have 2 next to each other because you have such a big family, that there is that minor nuance. And in number 4, unattended. So if somebody goes up to the beach at 9 o'clock and they want to put up a canopy, then they still can, but no, you can't leave your canopy unattended for that period of time. You can't move away. I know, like when Janine and I go to the beach, and if we're going back to Grottoes for lunch, we pull everything down. Most of that are protection for everyone around us, but if we have an umbrella, we pull that down so that it doesn't hurt anybody. I think it's the same thing for the canopies, but additional thoughts.
That's sensible.
I'm just not sure about the change to number 3. You want to change that to, tell me what your change is again?
Well, to the extent that if you had a large family unit, as the captain puts it, and there's 2 canopies together, and they're a total of 20 feet, I mean, I think that was Mr. Gallagher's point too, is that you couldn't have them 2 together, couldn't have the whole family. You would be required to put it 10 feet apart. And maybe that comes into, maybe it's a 1 and 3 combination, Gary, where if we were to go to the 14 by 14 feet, which was brought up, that maybe a canopy or canopies cannot exceed more than 14 by 14 overall feet.
Oh, so if we have 2 canopies together, then
And
that's
that's
the
still
whole.
in that same
Okay.
footprint. Just thoughts, throw it out there.
I would suggest 16 by 16 because the ones with the spider legs are 8 feet.
When they're done.
You could combine that.
The definition is of the area covered, it doesn't include the length that those
Correct.
things that come in way out.
It just does the,
It's just the area that's under cover. Yeah, I think Paul brings up a good point. It's kind of hard to overregulate this, you know what I mean? It just kind of gets into a lot of
weeds.
Yeah. But I mean, people, to Tom's point, people got appreciably more piggish this year. Noticed on my morning walks, yeah.
We want harmonious thought. That's what we're looking for.
It's going to be hard to enforce whatever rules we come up with. It's going to be really hard to enforce nothing to be set up by 9 a.m. in the morning. I mean, it's going to take extra folks. You're going to have some arguments. You're going to have people that set things up and leave. And when the beach patrol goes down for their early morning sweeps, about 8 o'clock, 8:15, and there's just a canopy sitting there, what are we going to do with it? I mean, are we actually going to pick it up and move it? And then if it breaks, who's responsible for it? Just please keep in mind the enforcement part and what it's going to take to enforce the rules.
so
That's all.
is the beach, you're not supposed to be on the beach overnight, correct?
Between 1 and 5.
So somebody could go down at 5 o'clock and set it up.
Yeah, they could.
Take your sunrise picture.
The other,
They do.
I do have one concern about this, like you said, the enforcement. So regulating that to this extent, so then now we're expecting our guards to go and confront people about where they're setting. You're too close to the lifeguard stand, you're not 10 feet, the law's 10 feet, they're getting the measuring tape out, you need to move. Then the people are irate and there's a confrontation, and then our lifeguards could be assaulted and they gotta call us, and then we're locking people up because of a tent. I think it could get into a very hairy situation. I don't think our lifeguards are on the beach, they're there to protect people, watch people in the water and keep them safe. But now we're asking, okay, now we gotta deal with the size of people setting up together, the feet that they're from the stands, and as he said, his guards and stuff aren't really having people come up to complain to the guards like, hey, all the space is taken up. That hasn't been an issue. And I do know that some of the citizens have been complaining about it, but when you regulate it to this extent, if you're gonna put a regulation in, there's gotta be enforcement action in it, but that could cause confrontation, and it really could end up in people getting hurt over it. We don't want our lifeguards to get in fights with people because somebody's irate and doesn't want to move their canopy or tent another 5 feet back or separate it. And that could be a big issue.
So Captain, if a canopy, not a tent, a canopy, is in a way that's going to impede the view, I'm up on my stand and there's something here, so I really can't watch this
Well, they do
quadrant.
that now.
Anyone to impede our view.
So what do you do then?
But of the water.
Move back.
Move them?
Yeah, and if they refuse to move, then we remove them.
So, but as long as they're in line with you, with your guards, it's okay?
It's our sight of view. It has nothing to do with anything but our sight of view. So when you're sitting there, you have peripheral vision 180 degrees. And if anything is encroaching on our 180 degree visual
Okay.
perspective, then we move it back.
But do you usually have problems with people when you say, hey, you need to move back further?
Never.
Because they don't really have a problem with people. People understand that go to the beach, that they can't impede the
Never.
lifeguard's view. Because that's a safety issue. But these other issues, we're talking about a certain amount of feet back behind the lifeguard chair, someone's got to enforce it. It could be a very hairy situation, and it could end up with some problems that you don't want to have.
Is the 180-degree view in code, or is that just in practice?
That's in practice,
Okay.
it's standard operating procedure.
All right.
So if we did nothing, you could just tell people you can't, you
Yeah.
gotta be back 10 feet. even if
We
you
don't
pass
have any
nothing.
problems right now. The beach patrol in terms of managing canopies and tents, other than aesthetic things from what complaints are coming in, we have no problems.
How many complaints did we get this year?
I would
On
say,
social media comments, I mean, that was like 1 million, but.
actual emails that I received was probably less than 10.
But it's allowed by the code, so there's really no basis for making a complaint. I mean, I've heard lots of complaints about this, and I don't feel strongly about this, but, you know, I think the lifeguards already have responsibilities for regulating activities on the beach that could cause a problem. Someone could get irate. I mean, what's worse than being handed a yellow card that says, you know, no alcohol on the beach, and with the threat of having the police called if you don't obey on that. You know, there's always a potential, if you tell people not to do something that they're not supposed to be doing, there's always a potential for them to become irate about it. So I don't have so much of a problem with that for this. I guess the question is, just does this provide some benefit to us? Do we collectively feel that this really provides some benefit? You know, if not, then, you know, let's move on.
So the tent question came up because if you were, ignore the baby tents need to be there. But if you were to have a closed-sided tent, then the things that the lifeguards are regulating, such as marijuana use, alcohol use, anything else you're not supposed to be doing in public, can't be seen. There's an assumption of privacy if I'm in my tent and you can't tell me what to do. Do we have any trouble with tents?
We would have to have probable cause to go into your tent.
But have you had any problems with tents?
We haven't had any problems with any shade devices other than the complaints on the aesthetic part of it. We don't have the patrons, no patrons have come to the lifeguards or myself and said, I can't stand all these tents here, I want them moved.
So my question was, were there any safety concerns you had because things could be happening in a tent that you were responsible for?
We have
Thank
no
you.
safety concerns. We have no injuries from moving canopies or tents going and harming anyone. We had zero response, or we get them down if we have to, obviously when a storm comes. But all umbrellas, everything come down. But we have no injuries on record from any of these devices.
And any concern about illegal usage inside a closed tent?
Now, when we do our tours, we look inside if the door is open. If the door is closed or it's shielded and we don't have any probable cause, we can't go and undo that door and open and look in. Now, if we saw smoke spewing out the side,
Smell.
big cheech.
A tent with closed sides, or sides that you can't see through, are really effectively prohibited on the beach anyway, because in the definitions in the town code, it says that tents must have clear sides. So you have to be able to see through the sides.
Okay, so that
So they're
takes care of
effectively
that.
prohibited
Okay.
anyway.
I have maybe a simple suggestion, and why don't we just say you can't set it up before the lifeguard's there, and leave it up to the discretion of the lifeguard how far back?
Well, remember, this is a discuss
Yeah.
recommendation.
Yeah.
So I think this is about putting something forward to the future. These type of revisions are based upon what we've heard from the captains, both the general public.
Yeah, but if we're gonna do an ordinance, we kind of gotta know what direction it's going. And
Right.
Paul, your direction's quite a bit different, which I don't necessarily think is a bad idea, that basically if you wanna come down early and set up, you can't set up canopies
Until the
early
lifeguard's there, right?
until the lifeguard's are there, if it's a canopy, you know?
Now, we're not
And that's-
measuring anything, and
And that's 10 o'clock, right?
But
9
it's the
o'clock?
We
unaccompanied,
make it 9 AM because that's when we're effectively on duty.
Yeah.
I don't mean we would make it, that's what I would recommend.
So the captain was referring to that distance back. in terms of safety issues. And then I think when you were originally contemplating this as a commission, you were thinking instead in terms of allowing someone who's just going to rent a tent or bring their own tent to have a shot at getting down there near that berm. So they're different interests there.
Here's kind of my thought. I think we need to do something, but I don't think any one of us have a clear idea on the exact right thing to do that's going to be the right balance in terms of how heavy-handed or light-handed to be about this. But this is a very easy thing to decide later to change. So I think we need to do some kind of ordinance before next summer regarding this, but I don't think it matters that much exactly what we do, because we're going to figure out if we got it wrong, we're going to know it and we'll change it.
So are we moving on, or?
Well, that's the
Yeah.
question. I mean, if
Let's
we want to write
discuss
an
that,
ordinance,
so.
we can write an ordinance for the next meeting. But we, as you say, we have to know what direction to take. So should we go through each of these points and try to get a consensus, or a sense of what the consensus may be on each of these points, and whether or not we should include them in a draft ordinance?
Why not?
All right.
We already spent 25 minutes on
So
it.
should we try to regulate the area covered by a canopy? No larger than 12 feet by 12 feet, or something else that seems to be appropriate?
Keep the
That-
space
Should that
out
be a
of
part
it.
of an ordinance?
Commissioner Bauer is asking that we keep the amount of square footage out of the restriction.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
keeping it out?
I'm fine with any size people want, and I'm also fine keeping it out. I like Commissioner Bauer's idea of saying we can't set them up before a certain time in the morning. That'll take care of half the problem that people
That's
have
half
an
the
issue with.
Okay.
It's like a race.
So
Everybody
take
get there
out
at the same time.
B1.
First come, first served.
Yeah, and it's going to be consistent whether it's
Okay.
Bay or Beach.
Okay.
And B2, the captain said he didn't have a problem with it because he would take care of that. Or do we want to say canopy may not impede the sightline of a lifeguard?
I think that's effectively what they're enforcing now.
But he says it's standard operating procedure, not in
No, I
code.
understand.
So should we put it in the code? Ordinance, wrong word.
I think we could leave it out for now,
Okay.
and then
Okay.
come back and revisit if it's a problem. Canopy, I think we could delete 3 as well, and just focus simply on canopies not being placed on the beach before 9 AM, or unattended.
Unattended or unaccompanied.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the effectiveness of that will be that people could come down and rent a regular umbrella from our vendor, and they'll have it placed there before you're allowed to put a canopy up, and then you're not going to end up with a row of canopies across the berm.
So when does the umbrella people open?
They come on at the same time as the lifeguards, I
Which is
think.
9?
So they're usually down there between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, depending on how early they want it. The individual wants to open up their shack and get those umbrellas out. People rent the umbrellas for a week.
And so they set them up in advance for them to come
They
down?
do, because they're working for tips.
Can you say that again? They set them up in advance without a customer?
No, only with the customer.
Sometimes somebody will come down, I think, as I recall, on, day one of their week-long visit, and they will pay, several $100s maybe to the staff person.
Some of them are kind of entrepreneurial, and they don't cover the whole area, but they'll put a few extra ones up that people can take. They won't have a take name on it, and you can sit there and they'll come up and they'll just charge you. But they don't crowd the beach or anything.
Sure,
They'll
that's
just set
consistent
you
with the
up.
contract. I mean, the objection to that was, people with more money can have better privilege because they have more money to spend. And I think that's a problem. That was the idea behind the original provision in the contract. Well, for these purposes, it sounds like we have a simple ordinance. Just unattended canopies shall not be placed on the beach before 9 AM.
And we are not addressing umbrellas in this at all?
No.
Okay. Very good. All right, and that'll be for next meeting or following meeting, or following meeting. Number 4, discuss if possibly vote to appoint Vincent Suzie to the Finance Committee. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, review and discuss the current contract and draft RFP for residential trash and recycling service. Town Manager?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. So our current contract will expire in April of 2025. We have to make a decision to either put it back out per the resolution. We've extended it once already. And so, again, the commissioners need to make a decision. Do we need to put it back out again for bid? Or do we pass a resolution to continue with the current vendor, which is Casella, which was GFL, which was Waste Industries before that? We did have a survey. You all had opportunities to look at the survey. I believe out of probably the 17 or so people that responded to the survey, we had, I think, one that was negative, and the rest of them were pretty much positive on the current vendor. Approximately 93 cents a year since the first contract in 2016 or 2017 in place. It's been about 93 cents a year increase, and that's with the valet to bring the trash cans in and out. So it's just, we do have the RFP, and it's there, it's ready to go out. If the commissioners should decide that we should put it out for bid, we will, and see what happens, or if there's a decision to continue with the current vendor. And I think our town attorney can talk about how that can actually be done.
Well, my thoughts are, sounds like most people like what we have. Let's keep what we have for a new RFP.
My only question is, if we extend, can we extend for 2 or 3 years so we don't have to address this in another year?
Yeah, we can. The original contract was ended in, I think, in April of 2021, then I extended it to the April of 2025.
Okay.
But that was, the last time that I could extend it.
So my take is, based on the feedback we got, people don't really want a lot of change, and it is working. And if we have the option to not put out an RFP, I don't know why we wouldn't just continue with something that's working pretty well.
We're not required to do an RFP.
So I think the balancing act is if you intended to change the service or change the cost of the service substantially, you would feel compelled to put it out to bid.
Yeah, 93 cents isn't compelling. It's not dramatic.
Well, first of all, is anyone here would like to have public comment regarding trash? Mr. Gallagher?
I'll return since I kind of started this back in July of last year.
And Kate, if you can let me know if there's anyone on Zoom that would like to come in. Okay. thank
Currently,
you
I
so much.
provided some info back in July to the town manager. I did a little bit of a survey myself. I reached out to a couple of developments who Casella is serving right now. And like Bay Ridge Woods pays $55 per quarter. We pay $47.12, I think, per month. It's a big difference. North Seaford pays $75 per quarter. That's a big difference of what we're paying. So thereabouts last year, Casella made probably around $352,000 from this contract in a one-year contract. It's, they're just rounded out. So currently we have Waste Management that actually works in Dewey and in our unincorporated areas. They pick up on Bayard Street on those houses on the north side. That's one. Republic is another one that does the Forgotten Mile, and they do on the other side of the bridge, they're doing some of the homes back in there. And the third one is Blue Hen, which is another one which is pretty much the whole Forgotten Mile in a lot of the unincorporated areas of Rehoboth. Currently, if you go on Casella's website, they list 21 different cities that they service. So looking back at the price and the way this was kind of rolled out, this was kind of rolled out in my opinion, in a negative sense, because the last contract nobody bid on except for Waste Management or GFL, whoever that was, that it's going to happen this time. But we have other competitors that are kind of right here. So I think cost effective wise, we're getting kind of hosed basically on the prices compared to other places. Now, I mean, these are full-time people in these developments, given that, and they get the once a week service, and then the pickup on they get once a week service on Mondays. And then they also have the recycle on Mondays too. So I think we have really nothing to lose on putting this out. I think part of this is also an outreach bit to these other companies. You know, the price, that's what my concern was early on when I looked at these prices. I was doing better with this company way back, managing the area that I managed, our 6 townhomes. I had a better price than this $47 back then. And this was, you know, what, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? So, you know, that's something to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Thank you. Kate, anyone else?
David Moskowitz.
Okay, great.
David, did you want to make comment?
Yeah, sure. David Moskowitz. Just what needs to be considered is the Dewey schedule could be different than what his friends is getting, because he said it was Mondays, but Dewey is Monday and Friday in the summer, and then Monday in the off season. So the schedule could be different. The garbage pickup could be different. It might be apples and oranges. But the issue Dewey has faced the last time they did the bidding, which apparently not many people remember, is besides doing the residential trash, they also look to do the garbage pickup in the corners. So, I mean, you either need to separate it or combine it. If we put it out for bid, the one risk is it could dramatically increase our price, could possibly decrease our price. So maybe some more study and see who would be interested. Is what happens if the current vendor decides not to bid for the contract again, and then we're trying to get someone last minute. At last time, Waste Management did not choose to bid. So might be helpful. There's 3 major companies, the current company that does us, Peninsula, and Waste Management, to find out if there's even interest in bidding.
Thank you.
Could somebody just tell me what he said? The echo was so bad I didn't quite hear it. What's the gist of what David just said?
Kate, do you wanna?
Can anybody just summarize it? Did he say it was a good thing or a bad thing?
He was kind of weighing pros and cons,
sorry?
yeah.
He kind of
He talked about the good things and the bad things. You know, he said it could be cheaper, it could be more expensive. The bids are all, you know, the service is very different, so you really don't know.
Right.
You know?
Oh, okay, thank
So
you.
the residential service and then also the ones that the town has on each corner.
Right, it's actually a good point.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just make, so in some of the developments that Mr. Gallagher had provided to me when I called about those, some of them weren't as labor intensive, some of them. When I say that, you could ride down the street in a truck and have one person on the truck. A claw comes out, people put their cans out, the claw comes out, picks it up and dumps it. Here in Dewey, it's very labor intensive because of the valet, and we have a lot of rentals. I mean, a lot of rentals. And when people rent, they don't really think sometimes when the even though there's a note inside the residence, when the garbage is supposed to come out and there might be in red, please put the cans back. Sometimes the rentals, they don't do that, they leave the cans out, and that causes some other problems. So it is a little different, like in some neighborhoods where the claw comes out, does it, and it's one person. Right now, there's 3 people in these trucks that come down the street. They have 2 guys that run out front, pull the cans real quick, the guy comes down, puts them in, they run them back sometimes, or they bring a truck down, they pull them all early, and then another truck comes down, empties them, and then they put them all back. There's a lot of labor involved in our streets during the summer. If they're not in and out of our streets sometime by 10 or 11 o'clock, they have a really hard time getting down the streets, getting back to the transfer station, so they try to get in and out as quickly as possible.
Commissioners, open for discussion.
Well, you know, I talked in a previous meeting, you know, about potentially year-round, and that was kind of the only significant change, you know, that I think we were talking about. And, you know, without getting too specific, there's an opportunity if we do it year-round with a single invoice to the town, which means the town has to rebill it back out, so it would involve a lot of change, and it would be mandatory for everyone, that, you know, you could basically make it that you basically pay for 8 or 9 months and you get 12, right? Because that's the fact that they get everybody and it's only one invoice, you know, it would be quite a bit of savings. But candidly, based on the feedback we got, we'd also get an angry mob of people who are just like, I'm here, you know, May to September, and, you know, I don't care if it's saving money, I don't want any trash service the rest of the month, right? So I'm not into things that really are gonna potentially get a lot of people, kind of the angry mom coming in, even if we think it's better, because one of the things about year-round trash service for everybody is I do think it'll solve some problems we have in town with the cans on the beach, the cans on the corners, things like that. If everybody has trash service all the time, I think it kind of takes care of some problems that we have in town. And it's, like I said, there's money to be saved there, but I just don't know that I want to see an angry mob of people about it.
So I think the real question is here, do we look for an RFP and send out for multiple, for the bid process, or do we renew the upcoming contract? I think there's value in both arguments, from the standpoint of just, doing a 3% increase and just leaving that, cost of living adjustment for a year. I think it's very palatable for everyone. I do believe that the RFP process, and again, I'm going to speak out of both sides, is a more efficient process because you have that process, you have multiple vendors, you have the ability, and whatever comes from that, comes from that. But that's a risk point that, we're going to need to take if that's the path that we decide to take.
And is there any limit as to how long we can extend? Is it just like for another year and then we have to do an RFP next year?
There's no requirement for us to do an RFP. The council or the group that was put together to really correct our trash issues several years ago did a great job, because we don't have trucks going down every street every day, multiple times, more different companies.
Agreed.
It's one company. They're in and out on Mondays and Wednesdays, or Mondays and Fridays, depending on the season. I think the structure works. The question is, do we want to renew or do we want to RFP?
I'm okay with us doing a renewal. I'd just like it to be for a few years so we aren't addressing this every year.
Okay.
That's my perspective on it.
Agreed.
Commissioner Preston.
Do we know for certain that the current contractor is amenable to, in essence, keeping the same agreement with some adjustment in price, or are they thinking that, with a new contract, they would want to renegotiate all of it?
They want Dewey Beach to be a customer for them, and they want us to stay with them. I think we could work, I can't tell you 100% that they're not going to say it's going up another 93 cents, but I have a feeling if this wasn't up for renewal, we wouldn't have to worry about it going up dramatically. The contract says if the prices at the transfer station should go up, they're allowed to raise it to match that. If the fuel prices go up, they're supposed to come in and talk to us about fuel prices if they go up to like $8 a gallon for fuel, diesel, whatever. And then we negotiate costs. That's the way that the contract is laid out. They've been in the 4 years I've been here, when we have a customer call and complain about a trash can not being put back behind their house, if I call them, they're on it the next day. If I say, hey, you missed the trash can on Dagsworthy Street, it's still full, they come out the next day and do it. So their service to the town has been good. I think they would try to stay with the same contract if we went back with them.
Any other comments, council?
Can I say a little bit?
Only if you say your name, address, and yes.
Hi, my name is Debbie Durazio. I live on 124 Carolina Street, right around that corner when all those trucks used to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning. There had to be 7 or 8. I think I live near you, I heard. And it was the worst thing. In addition, as you said, there were trash cans thrown for the whole week. They were just trash everywhere and plastic bags, and it was disgusting. And it took 2 years, and I think Gary remembers this, but it took 2 years to actually get this. We had to put some ordinance in place to make sure people didn't do it. The town did a great job. Anyway, we put this RFP together, and we thought we would get a ton of people, because there were a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of companies that do little things. And when the bids actually came in, there was one bidder, and it was, I don't think it was Waste Management, it was somebody else, and Waste Management. Waste Industry, yeah, anyway. And that was the only one. We were shocked. We were like, so, and not everybody was happy. A lot of the people that lived in multiple housings, the condo associations were not all that happy. But a can full of trash is a can full of trash, no matter where it is. So I guess what I want to say is we're talking about for 6 months, $250 to a homeowner that's just here for the 6 months, at $42.12. And then it goes down if you stay extra months, and then you can say, I don't want it anymore, like we do, and it's, you don't pay anymore. Probably about $400, $470 is what a year-round homeowner pays, and there's about 400 of them, I think you said, that are not here, so we're really not talking about representing the whole, when we talk about that, the really bulk of the people, which are the seasonal people for us. It was so hard it was hurting kittens to push this together. So my opinion would be, if it's not broke, please don't fix it, because you'll just make a huge, big problem for yourselves to try to, bidding it, yes. I do agree, though, that, some of the, if we could put the town collected trash where the town pays for it, because this contract is just having rates for us to pay, but the contract is between us and Waste Industries or Waste Management, whereas the town trash, you actually pay it. So they're kind of random thoughts, but I just think we have bigger problems to worry about than the trash. And I do think they did a good job for what it is. We're asking for valet service, and anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Dedes.
I was part of the original group that got that RFP out, and I was asked by the former mayor at that time to follow up with the other trash companies that showed up for the pre-bid conference, and we had about 5 of them. Called everyone, and their biggest issue was, one, the complicated setup that we had for the payment by month, collections and so forth was an issue. But the bigger issue was they did not want to come into the town in the summer. The streets were narrow, and they just felt that they couldn't get their people to agree to come in. So that's why they didn't bid. That's it.
Thank you, sir. So based upon this line item, to review and discuss the current contract, the question is, do we ask our town manager to get a quote, and assuming that the quote is cost of living, and if it's just a cost of living increase, to not move forward with an RFP?
Yeah, for, I'd say 3 years.
Okay. Well, as long as they come back with a cost of living adjustment, I don't believe we may have the ability to review. It's when I think it's in excess, that might be an issue that we could send out for RFP. My initial thought. Okay. All right.
I agree.
Number 6, discuss the draft ordinance to amend Chapter 1-16 definitions of the code to define standard and cluster-style mailbox assemblies in Chapter 158 streets and parking, to add a new section relating to the installation of mailbox assemblies.
Debbie, you dropped off.
Is anyone here for public comment regarding mailboxes? Online? Kate, is there anybody that would like to discuss mailboxes?
David is still in the waiting room. I'm not sure. David, do you want to make comment now?
As long as they read my letter, I'm gonna hold off.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want to ask everybody shaking their head, they've seen the letter and they've read the comments?
Yes.
That he submitted?
Yes. I didn't think I had a comment on public comment.
Yeah, I
All right.
wanted to make sure that
Town manager, can you just give us an overview of this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if Kate could bring up there's a couple of these pictures that I've taken around town. So myself and the assistant town manager, a couple months ago, somebody put a mailbox up on the street, and they put it about 6 feet from their driveway, and they put it in the ground, in the right-of-way, where the mailbox should go in the right-of-way, but they put it in the right-of-way 6 feet away from their driveway, and they put it in with a steel pipe, and they put it in the ground with cement. And to me, it seemed to hinder public parking. In Dewey Beach, without a property tax, we rely heavily to about $1.9 million a year in revenue in public parking. So if you pull up some of those pictures, you'll see around town, currently there are mailboxes that people, it appear, have put them up in the middle of their 50-foot lot to kind of hinder people from parking in front of their house. Now a car could park where those mailboxes are. The driveway is over 20 feet to the left of that. So you see where these two mailboxes are, that is hindering a parking spot. Here you see where the mailbox is, and you see where the driveway is there. Go to the next one, please. And here's a mailbox that is set way back, which the mail person probably, I don't know if they drive up, and by the federal law, it actually says the mailbox is supposed to be 41 to 45 inches or 41 to 45 inches high and 6 to 8 inches from the curb or from the shoulder of the road, approximately. And the issue is when they put a mailbox back like this far back, people don't want to park in front of it, even though they should. The next one, please. This mailbox, you see here, and then there's a sign that says, do not block the driveway, and you see how far over that is from the actual driveway. So it's taking up parking spots all around the town by having these mailboxes in these areas. What we're asking is people don't have to move their mailboxes if they're already there, but anybody new that's going to put a mailbox in, or if you're going to replace your mailbox and put a new mailbox in to replace, we would ask that it be within 3 feet of the driveway entrance. Now, I talked to the postmaster today, Miss Watts, who oversees the area, and I also spoke with the post carrier for Dewey Beach. They said it would really help if the mailboxes were in 3 feet of the driveways, because their biggest problem with Dewey Beach is cars are all parked in front of some of these mailboxes, and they can't deliver. They have to get out and they have to walk up and put in. And the other thing they said that would really help out would be cluster boxes. Now, when it comes to cluster boxes, I know not everybody wants to do that, but it would help. And we're not telling them they have to do it, but if they want to do it, we're here to assist them. We would, Assistant Town Manager Jim Dedes and I would be more than happy to go out and see where they want to put the cluster box, as long as it's in an area that's not prohibiting parking. And they have to get a building permit for this because the cluster boxes are heavy. They have to put them into the ground. We are not saying anybody has to currently move their boxes. All we want is anything new going in is at least within 3 feet of a driveway, just so they're not taking away from our public parking in the right of way.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kate.
Commissioners, comments?
3 feet, within 3 feet of a driveway is completely reasonable.
And it's for all new and or replaced. If it's there.
Yeah, so about that, if I
Yes.
could, so, the right-of-way is beyond your property line. So this concept of, well, I'm grandfathered, I had my mailbox installed before you pass this ordinance, really doesn't confer any real rights on the property owner. And then grandfathering is probably more of a concept that relates to very significant investments that you make in reliance on the current law, like the placement of your home. The placement of a mailbox does not confer upon you a whole lot of rights in terms of, well, I just spent like $200 on this mailbox, and I shouldn't have to be made to comply with your ordinance. So I just don't want to give people the impression that under certain circumstances, and the town needs to be fair and always is in these, when these things arise, that I think someone who's got a mailbox, including the one that was just mentioned, that is impeding the public parking, despite the fact that it's in concrete and was installed in steel, I think you have to treat everyone fairly. You have to have some kind of a uniform approach to dealing with it, but that person doesn't really have a grandfathering defense to a requirement to move it.
So Fred brings up a good point, and I didn't think of this. In the north end, for whatever reason, a lot of people have just informally banded together, and there'll be like 7 mailboxes in a row that aren't by a driveway, but they're not trying to block anyone's parking. That's the location where everyone, like half the people on the block have their mailbox and they just walk over and get it. So I certainly wouldn't want to tell those people that they need to move it, because they're just trying to kind of help out the mail carrier so he can just put all the mail away at one time.
But there is a provision in here for removal of non-conforming or unsafe mailbox assemblies. It does talk about a new mailbox assembly, and I'm looking at the wrong paragraph here, relocation and replacement. Yeah, it's really paragraph C I was thinking of. Town reserves the right to remove, relocate, or cause to be relocated and/or replace any existing mailbox assembly located within a public right-of-way that interferes. And I have a problem with what follows here, because I don't really understand, and maybe there's some examples of how a mailbox would interfere with the safety of the traveling public, or the function, maintenance, or operation of the roadway or utility systems, or that interferes with pedestrian traffic.
So
I
that
haven't
paragraph, I believe, was taken from the state law, Delaware law on placement of mailboxes.
But if it's your responsibility to enforce that, you know, what examples could you point to where one of these particular criteria would be violated?
The mailbox is at a corner and pedestrians couldn't be viewed by
You gotta
cars.
walk into traffic to get around it.
Well, wherever you put a mailbox, you're gonna have to walk around it into, and most people walk in the street anyway. I'm just
At
not,
an intersection.
I mean, it's very clear that, you know, you want a mailbox within 3 feet of your driveway. That makes sense. Is there any prohibition on someone nevertheless parking in front of that?
So some people will paint yellow lines in front of the mailbox. We'll get a call maybe at town hall and say, hey, there's cars parked in front of my mailbox on Carolina Street. We can't get mail when the cars are there. And then we'll go down and we'll try to figure out the best way to either put something there that says you can't park, or try to get the person to move their mailbox. And most times, they don't want to move their mailbox. I know it's only a $200 mailbox, but you would think that you're asking them to build a new home. They do not want to move their mailboxes.
Well, again, I don't have a problem with new mailbox assemblies or replacements, you know, because then there's an opportunity to make sure that they put it where it's supposed to go, where the presumably we pass this ordinance, what the ordinance would say. It's the problem of what do you do about existing ones, and I'm not sure that I can't understand, you know, in what situations the criteria here would be satisfied so that you could go to them and say, you know, you have to move that mailbox.
Well, I think,
I do have one example, and that was, excuse me, it was on the corner of Clayton Street and Route 1. And they had it actually anchored into the sidewalk on the corner. Now, that would be an example of one that probably we would want to go in and take down at some point. But that was there for years, and there was always all kinds of issues on that as well. So, I mean, that's an example if you really wanted to do that, but that's the only example I can think of, and it's usually on a corner.
so I may be responsible for starting this conversation, and the town manager, I know. So the town manager wasn't saying, if you pass this, you're gonna give me the authority to go out and hassle people who've got mailboxes that don't comply. His point was that we're not going to do that, not that we are going to do that. And I just wanted to add that if we don't do it, it's not because we don't have the right to do it.
Just use good judgment.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like it's a burning issue at the current time.
My issue has been, and I know the town manager knows this, and I'll just voice it, is that there are individuals in this town who have put mailboxes purposely so that people won't park in those areas. That is potentially affecting our parking revenue, not that the cars don't get parked eventually, but there's maybe bad taste to it. In my street alone, which a few of those were my street, there are mailboxes randomly put all the way up on the town's property, close to the street, in the middle. It's impossible to put cars in there. It's impossible for the parking there. I would like the ability to ask to have them move them, because the whole point is that they shouldn't be there and that they were put there wrongly to begin
I have a
with.
question. Are the mailbox people the same people as the cabana people?
No, they're the ones that they believe that, you know, you're funny. There are people in town, there's a handful that believe that nobody should park in front of their house, even though it's not their property.
Right.
Even though they have another driveway somewhere else. So I would be all for an ordinance that enabled the town to require them to move.
I'm completely fine with us. It's not a vote item today, but I'm completely fine with
Yeah.
us doing this.
Okay.
I as well.
And to your point also, I mean, the cluster boxes, I know we have a cluster box in my house, or in our community. They're so much better looking than the 400 mailboxes that line the road, especially on King Highway. Okay.
Just one comment. I'm fine with doing that as well. My question is, or my problem is, the language that's used here. And, while we have a very reasonable town manager and very reasonable staff. Now, that's not, I don't want to give, somebody down the road, the ability to kind of run roughshod over the placement of these mailboxes and create a big controversy, just because we haven't been specific about the conditions under which we would ask someone to remove and replace their mailbox. So I would hope we could improve the language with respect to paragraph C.
Okay.
And I would say if you eliminated the language, you wouldn't be changing the town's authority. If you just didn't even speak to
that
it.
sentence, just.
Okay.
Take it out?
Mr. Mayor, just one more quick comment. While I was talking to the postmaster today, she told me that they will be putting a mailbox in. Dewey does not have a mailbox. They will be putting a mailbox down on Salisbury Street on the second block. So.
Kate?
I just wanted to specify, especially for Commissioner Persinger, this was not put together with Fred's help or Bill's help. I kind of had to pull from a bunch of different samples from literally around the country because there wasn't much locally for me to go off of. So I expected, however we have to play with this, it is very, very rough. So just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah.
Great job, Kate.
I'm just glad we're talking about things like canopies and trash and mailboxes versus, some of the other things some of the other towns are talking about.
That's a good point.
Number 7, discuss and potentially vote to refer to the Charter and Code Review Committee a proposed change to the town code that would allow property owners in a flood zone to add 1 additional foot of freeboard with a corresponding increase of 1 foot in maximum building height as an additional voluntary measure of flood protection.
Yeah, I put this and this item together and the next item also, based on the discussion we had at the last meeting and a suggestion that Commissioner Jasinski had. And this particular idea is one that he suggested. We passed an increase in the freeboard to 2 feet, from 1 foot to 2 feet at the last meeting. We had a recommendation to go to 3 feet. Commissioners felt more comfortable with going only to 2. And part of the assumption was that, we could see how it goes and then make an increase that freeboard amount in the future if it seemed a good idea to do so. I really think we should think about the amount of freeboard that we have in place as a long-term standard. I think 1 foot was in place for quite some time. And the problem is that, if somebody builds to the new standard and they have a situation where they have a substantial loss, substantial damage to the property, then they could be faced with a complete rebuild just because they have to meet a new standard, if we were to increase it sometime in the near future, even within the next few years. Commissioner Jasinski's notion was that perhaps we should offer owners an option to go up another foot in terms of the freeboard, and at the same time, give them an additional increase of whatever the increased freeboard would be up to 1 foot. So that would, in essence, make it equivalent to actually having 3 feet of freeboard and then 32 feet on top of that. That's really the essence of the proposal. We could do this, I believe, outside of any changes to the flood damage reduction section of the code, which is section 101. So I don't think we would have to go back to FEMA to do something like this, and it would be completely voluntary. It, in some sense, would be an encouragement to have people go that additional foot or up to an additional foot, and perhaps take advantage of some reduced flood insurance premiums as a result of that. So the proposal here is to refer this to Charter and Code Committee, ask them to consider it, and make some recommendations on that proposed option.
Yeah, just, I mean, just so everyone's real clear, in a flood zone, you have a 32-foot building envelope. It's the same building envelope, it's just giving you an option to shift it a foot higher if you want that extra protection too. And that way, it's voluntary, no one's forcing you to do it.
It's easy. So can I have a motion to send this?
I'll motion.
Second.
She got second. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8, discuss possible vote to request that the Charter and Code Review Committee review code requirements related to elevating properties in a flood zone and make recommendations for clarifying and resolving discrepancies in existing language. Commissioner Persinger.
Yeah, again, this really comes from the discussion that we had at the last meeting. And also, 5 or 6 years ago, I think Courtney Reardon was still commissioner at that time. He and I undertook an analysis of the existing code provisions related to elevating properties, both what you have to do as well as what you might be able to do voluntarily. It was a pretty tough slog through the code, I have to say that. We really didn't get full consideration of it. I think at some point maybe COVID may have gotten in the way, although I may not be remembering the history that well. There is some confusing language in the provisions. And I think, some of the discussion we had at the last meeting is a good example of that. There was a discussion or an assertion that properties that encroach on setbacks could not be substantially renovated and elevated. I think there are some sections of the code which do appear to allow that event to actually happen. Section 101.27.3 does, as I've suggested here, provide or suggest both the opportunity and a limit for doing so. If you combine some interpretations of Section 185.59A and 185.60B, it suggests that in general, properties that don't conform with setbacks or other bulk requirements, and those are basically all listed in Table 2 of the Town Code, that you can elevate those properties to FEMA and freeboard levels in the same configuration, but would be subject to the height limit. There's also a Section 185.46 that applies to properties that were built before the adoption of the flood insurance rate maps. And you actually have the height limit waived for substantially damaged property. There's also in one of these same sections, it's either 185.59 or 60, a reference to the town-wide 35-foot height limit, which is no longer true. So if nothing else, that clearly needs to be adjusted. So, I've offered some interpretations here of what I think the town code says. But I think what's important is, and we could debate this, and Dawn may disagree, or Jim Dedes may disagree with my interpretations. But I think what's important is that we ought to sit down and try to figure out what it is we would like to be able to do, what we think property owners should be able to do voluntarily, as well as what they're required to do. We could do so through the development of some scenarios, applying this to properties that were built both before the flood maps and after the flood maps, properties that conform to all of the existing zoning requirements, and then those that are non-conforming, properties that are substantially damaged or voluntarily improved. The idea here would be to review this, or rather refer this to the Charter and Code Review Committee, ask them to make some consideration of this, and then give us some suggested recommendations. This is not a one-off kind of thing. I mean, not a quick thing. I think there's some slogging that has to go through here, that we would have to go through here in order to come up with a good idea of what we think is the way to go. But once we have a firm idea of what we think is fair to property owners and what we think is a reasonable course, then we can go back and revisit the code, make sure that we can have provisions in the code that would accommodate that. I've also thought about maybe running this by the Climate Change Committee. This is kind of within their charge as well. They have a lot of things on their plate already, so that might not be an immediate charge, but there may be some value in doing that.
So to Commissioner Persinger's point, let's say is the time to kind of have this figured out is before you have a major storm event. Because if something affects one property, that's a Board of Adjustment issue. But when something affects everyone's properties, you basically, in Southwest Florida, they basically have an angry mob in all these towns because of all the rules. And they're kind of hamstrung, and all these people are basically stuck where they can't fix the properties and the code doesn't really allow it, right? And it's a problem down there. It's a big problem. So trying to get it fixed as best possible is a good idea.
Yeah, good, agree.
Agreed. So can I have a motion to request that the Charter and Code Review Committee and climate change? Or
Yeah, I would add climate change in there as well, just to give the opportunity to do that. We don't have to do it right away. They don't have to do it at the same time.
At least they both can be reviewing it and providing recommendations back.
So I move it to, I move that we have Charter and Code and Climate Committee look at these areas of conflict.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? Any other comments from the gallery? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Somebody has a comment or no? Okay, that's all.
Aye. All right, that was also unanimous. All right, final element comments. Commissioner Bauer.
So at the chamber meeting, the Dewey Rehoboth Chamber meeting the other day, Todd Lawson gave a really good presentation, I thought, about the reassessment and, you know, because that's coming, that'll hit next August.
You looked at my notes, did you?
No, did you?
Reassessment, you looked at my notes. Go ahead, finish.
I'll take the first part, you take the second. But yeah, I think it's important everybody pays attention to it because it is going to impact them. You're going to see your taxes go up. But what I found very interesting of it is 28,000 was the average home in Rehoboth in 1974. Today, the average home is 780, something like that. But so if they kept the same 44.5 cents, that would obviously increase your tax bill tremendously. But that's only part of it because your tax bill, only 10% of that bill today represents what the county gets. The other 90% is the school tax. So I think everybody needs to pay attention to what the school board's doing. So that was it. You can take the rest of it then.
I will after this. Commissioner Gibbons.
The Town of Dewey Beach hosted the Delaware Psychological Association's annual convention last weekend, and the town sparkled and shined, and they've agreed to return for the next couple of years. So I'm very excited, and thank you, Mayor, for welcoming everybody to town.
Commissioner Jazinski.
Just, town manager mentioned it, but there will be an infrastructure meeting probably in December, it's just the date's not finalized yet, to talk about getting some of the rain flood areas in the north end fixed with a combination of the research you did and the grant money that we got.
Wonderful.
No comments.
I only have two small comments, well, three, from a reassessment standpoint. I think Paul's point was great, and what Carol had presented at that meeting was wonderful also. Just to note that, you know, the total amount that the Sussex County takes in is $18.5 million before the reassessment. It's $18.5 million after the reassessment. So it's going to be a shuffle. But what did come off out of that presentation is that 90% that's coming at it from the school board standpoint, they have the ability to raise that 10%. So it can go from 60 million to 600. So if you think of look at your tax bill, that school board can go up 10%, but that figure that's right around that from just the county, it will not move that much, which is a much smaller number. So just so you can look at that. Second thing is I'm proud to be a neighbor of Miss Bonnie McCarthy, whose face you will see probably on every electric board this weekend, as on the 16th, she turns 104.
Wow.
So she's an amazing woman.
In Dewey Beach.
In Dewey Beach.
It's a good, clean living.
She has told me that back in the 40s, she used to smoke filterless cigarettes and drink whiskey and dance on bars.
Didn't we all?
But she attributes she asked her baby sister at one point in time, who's a few years younger, and they can't figure out why they've lived so long. So.
Their family doctor died 50 years ago.
She's a wonderful person. She's got all her faculties. It's just, she's an amazing, amazing person. And my wife and I will be taking her on a bar crawl on Saturday, finishing off the starboard if you want to meet her. The other thing is I did want to just express condolences for the passing of Sean Rogers. Sean Rogers and his family had owned the Exxon here in town for years, and he unfortunately, his memorial service was today, and a lot of locals went out, especially the police department, because they've taken care of our cars forever. So I just want to express my condolences to the Rogers family. With that, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.